right, let's start here. This is Senator Ron Johnson and talking about these. Forgive me, I was reading the story earlier. The he's talking about the lack of cooperation that senators are seeing from the Secret Service. And so he said, and this is now again, we've seen 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump in a 2-month period. And so Senator Ron Johnson detailing some of this, he said, things like, now he's talking about the previous assassination attempt. The shooter was killed. And as he talks about the autopsy report here, he's saying things like the autopsy report. The House has it under subpoena. We don't have it. The toxicology report. We don't have any of the trajectory reports. So where'd the bullets go? We don't even know how they handled the crime scene, he said. And again, just basic information. He's saying we should have it and we don't have it. We haven't been able to interview the sniper who took out Thomas Crooks, he said. The sniper has been, kind of, I'm maybe getting confused. I want to be careful in what I say here. So he said, just a lack of information. They're not getting it. The FBI has done 1,000 interviews. We've done 12, he says. So it just the lack of information, the slow walking that we see. And I mentioned to you right after this happened, this was starting to unfold, I think it was becoming pretty clear fairly quickly that we were not going to get a lot more information, that more information would not be forthcoming. And then we saw, the new head of the Secret Service taking over, and you thought, one might hope, okay, it's the same thing. In fact, I think it's even a little bit worse than it was previously with the Secret Service. So I can't say that this is surprising. It's maddening. I mean, it's really unfortunate. It's maddening. Americans want answers. And I think we want accountability. We want to know that folks are being held accountable. We want our government that operates in our name to be held accountable for things, and we want them to be transparent as they can. But the amount of secrecy is just mind-blowing. And Senator Ron Johnson talking about it. Again, that's a story that you can find this morning at Fox News. Fox News has a couple of stories that I wanted to share with you. There was another one. This is coming from a columnist. And he's making some really good points here about this second assassination attempt against Donald Trump. And this is David Marcus. He's a columnist and an author. He explained the difference in how Americans reacted to the first assassination attempt versus the second. So this time, nobody changed the TV channel. Nobody talked about it. It was palpable, he said. It was like nothing happened. And this was scary because when we get desensitized to these things, it can get really ugly really fast. This is during an interview he did on Fox and Friends with Steve Doocy. So he penned an op-ed this week highlighting the fact that people stopped in their tracks after the first attempt on Trump's life. But when news of the second one broke, people said, "Are you surprised?" A number of us did, including me. Honestly, I'm not surprised. But he says none of the networks cut away from the action for news coverage. My phone wasn't blowing up with notifications. And my guess is that 90% of the people on the floor of the casino or in the sports book, they had no idea that this had even happened, he says. So the second attempt on Donald Trump, the how many people and what's happening, are we becoming desensitized to these attempts on Trump's life? To have two in such a short period of time, it's pretty incredible. There are certainly those that I blame for being responsible for what it is we're seeing, but it's quite mind blowing. And I wonder about that, as I'm in the news every day about getting desensitized to so much of this stuff. You know, the when you're in it every day and you're talking about it and you're reacting to it and you're reporting on it and what effect does it have on you? What influence does it have on you? Um, I worry about that. I worry about that. There are a few other stories that I also wanted to share this morning. The This is coming from Trump supporters who were backstage during one of Donald Trump's recent appearances. These are folks who sat on stage during the Arizona rally. They're suffering from mysterious eye injuries. And these are folks on one side of the stage. Just one side. There were folks on both sides of the stage. But what is it that's going on? We don't know. And this is not just one person. And the New York Post tells the story of Mayra Rodriguez. She started experiencing eye irritation when she exited the venue. She said, as soon as we left and we stepped outside, my eyes were burning, she said. She thought her allergies were acting up. So they began the drive home, 90-minute drive back home to Phoenix. She said the eye irritation became so severe that she rushed went to the emergency room. And everyone was asking her if she had been sprayed with something. Are you sure you didn't get sprayed with something? Your symptoms look like you got sprayed with something. This is what the ER staff was telling her. And so then her symptoms got worse the following day. And then as it's gone on, she's gotten her situation has become better. But she says it was not the lights, because many were saying, well, it's the lights. Is it the lights that was causing the issue? No, it was not the lights. She said she was nearly blind on the Friday following the rally. And then a few days later, it started getting better. Her brother described the same escalation of pain. He called it unbearable. It was all focused on my eyes. My eyes were red like hell. It's unbearable. I couldn't handle it, he told local media. So the Secret Service said it was unaware of the incident. Well, of course they were. What else is new? If it's news, it's news to the Secret Service. They were unaware of the incident. They said there was no threat to Trump at the Arizona event. But she's asking, why is it only the group of people where Trump came in? So it was only people on that side where Donald Trump entered that experienced this. So the New York Post has got more on it. So this incident comes just days after authorities, talked about the alleged gunman. We know the second assassination attempt against Donald Trump. But that's pretty crazy, isn't it? That you have all of these people who are on that side of the stage reacting to the same eye burning That's really crazy. And so bad that she needed to go into the emergency room. Again, after leaving, within 90 minutes, it had grown even worse. So bad that she wanted to get checked out. There was one other story I want to share with you this morning. It's a great piece by D'Souza Media this is at Breitbart. High noon in America. And basically, and this piece goes on to really make a really great case that this is what we see playing out right now with Donald Trump and what's going on in the country right now is what we see in a lot of the old Westerns. And it's written by Dinesh D'Souza. He said, before I came to America, I had no direct familiarity with Americans or American culture. My knowledge was largely through the lens of movies, most commonly Westerns. I saw a whole bunch of them. My favorites include For a Few Dollars More. That's a great movie. And The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I love that movie for a host of different reasons. Great movie. Jimmy Stewart, John Wayne in that. He said, the Western is above all a morality tale, and as such, it provides a remarkable, clear, and insightful way to look at Donald Trump and our current crisis. And so he goes on to make the case in the typical Western, what you see is you've got the sheriff, and you got a fairly normal town, whatever town it is, and things are going well. And then you have the bad guys who come in. You have the bad guys who come in and start absolutely disrupting the entire town, and they're crooked and all manner of shenanigans that they're up to, Dinesh D'Souza writes. And then the sheriff is like, doesn't know what's going on, incapable of being able to handle it. And then you have the stranger, right? You have the stranger who comes in, and in the Clint Eastwood movies, it was always Eastwood was the stranger who came into the community and was tough enough then to be able to react to these things. And I thought that's a really kind of an interesting analogy, and I suggest you read it. You'll find it at Breitbart.com. That whole kind of, the Donald Trump is that guy. He's the one. And then at the end, what do you see? Clint Eastwood then, who normally at the end of the movie, he rides off and so on. And Donald Trump is kind of that guy. And I thought, well, it's an intriguing way to put it, and I cannot do it justice. I suggest you read it at Breitbart. But it really caught my attention, and I thought, that's right. Donald Trump is the guy who's, and Trump talked about it yesterday in Long Island about being unafraid, and he's recognizing that it really is his moment. At least I see that more and more. Others don't, but I see that more and more from Donald Trump. I think the speech he gave in Long Island yesterday, he really was, I thought, on point, and we've seen that. We saw that more yesterday than we have seen recently. Certainly, I think more than we saw in the debate. And I think he needs to be that person more. It's a great story at the New York Post today talking about that. But I think Dinesh D'Souza using an analogy that probably wouldn't have, occurred to a lot of us. But Donald Trump being the guy who comes in and cleans up the mess and then rides off into rides off at the end of the movie. Donald Trump kind of being that guy. And I think especially with Donald Trump would be term limited out. He cannot run again. So he cannot run for office again. He is if he were to be sworn in, he'd be a lame duck from the moment that he begins. And I think there's something to that. I've said this on the air before about Donald Trump, that there would be a freedom in that would allow him to do things that the first term Donald Trump would not have done. He's definitely changed. He's definitely aware now of what he's up against and what he's facing. And I think that makes him, in some ways, smarter. The very outspoken Donald Trump, I think, who sometimes is not as smart. the, I think he still needs to get a handle on that. And I'm still seeing pieces. There was a piece at Outkick about Trump and some of his what was it? So I want to pull up that. It was a piece at Outkick, and again, some of the recent comments that Donald Trump had made, and it was just like, what is Donald Trump doing? What is, I mean, not understanding that. I think that has been frustrating for for some on the right, like me. You know, I get frustrated by Donald Trump at times, and I wonder exactly, I understand his sense of humor. There are a number of people who don't, who take him very seriously in the things he says. And for me, it would be, I think, more reassuring if he were to calm that. And if he were to be a lot more focused and understand every time he's in front of the mic, or every time he's on True Social. It was the Taylor Swift thing. Taylor Swift. And he said, I hate Taylor Swift, he says on True Social. What was that all about? And other people are wondering the same thing. I see other conservative commenters, are saying, what was that all about? Where did that come from? Those off, kind of just off the top of his head or whatever comments like that. I think, first of all, they do not serve him well. They're confusing to people, because, I started asking questions. What was he thinking? I wouldn't have said that. I mean, Donald Trump, Taylor Swift, whatever, she and her fans, and she's supporting Kamala Harris. The reality is that Taylor Swift endorsement did nothing for Kamala Harris. I mean, not even a blip in the poll numbers. So the poll numbers, I mean, the poll numbers are changing daily. And I think that's almost worthy of conversation. Fox News is out with a new poll today. And of course, so Fox News is hammering the hell out of that. The new Fox News poll, here's what it's showing. Blah, blah, blah. First of all, these polls coming out every other day, first of all, to me, it's just meaningless. What it boils down to is it is going to be a very small number of people who are going to will actually determine this election. That's the crowd that, as of right now, we don't know where they stand. We know where, where people like me stand, the Trump supporters, where I stand, where the Kamala Harris crowd, where the Democrats, where they're at. But it's that small number of people in a few of these states that we really don't know. And those are the people, again, and I said this a couple of weeks ago. I think, and this was prior to the debate with Kamala Harris. I said, I think those are the people that Donald Trump really needs to start focusing on. And he needs to make the case to them. And one of the things I loved about this speech in Long Island last night, and again, go take a look at it and read the piece from the New York Post. Because I thought Donald Trump, and I talked about this on the air this morning, that Donald Trump was really focusing in on things that New Yorkers, and I think a good number of Americans, care about. He was talking about the economy. He was talking about a number of different things. Excuse me, I've got a cough here that's just dogging. Sorry about that. Um, he was really focused in, I think, on things that everyday Americans care about. And I mentioned the questions that were coming, and there was a piece at justthenews.com. I spent some time on that during the show this morning. The questions that everyday Americans are asking, people who are at these rallies and who are there and what they're asking, their questions versus the questions of the legacy media, it's really kind of striking. And the legacy media is nowhere near, what in being able to articulate the questions that are on the minds of voters. They're not even near it. The way the media thinks is just absolutely mind blowing. So I think Donald Trump in that speech in Long Island last night really did a remarkable job, I think, of zeroing in on a number of these different things. And he talked very briefly about the second assassination attempts, and it's because he believes he's a person of consequence. He is a person of consequence, and the left understands that. They're aware of it, but again, he was talking about issues, and he told New Yorkers, he said, "What in the hell have you got to lose in voting for him? What in the hell have you got to lose?" And he's absolutely right. In phrasing it that way, I just thought it was a remarkable speech. He touched on a number of things. As I shared on the air this morning, and I think he needs to do more of that. He really needs to focus in on voters, and in particular, that small number of voters, undecided voters that are going to make a difference. I had in the stack of stuff this morning. I do want to share this because forgive me. I was hoping I had it. It was regarding what voters were saying. Forgive me. I'm having to go through the entire stack of stuff. Here we go. Minnesota. That was the story. Minnesota voters. This was a story on the New York in the New York Post a few days ago. And they said there is Minnesota Post in bold research poll shows the narrowest gap in any Minnesota survey between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Independent voters are the reason. Harris leads in Minnesota by just over 4 points. A big part of why Trump is so close in the state, independent voters are rallying to Trump by nearly a 2-to-1 ratio. Wow, that's incredible. So again, it's a small number of people. These independent voters, these Donald Trump is talking to the base, and with a lot of this. And I think Donald Trump is and I fear that he's not going to be able to do it. Do you think Donald Trump is going to be able to stop talking to the base? Because the base, they eat it up. They love what Donald Trump is saying. And I just saw a piece. There's a piece this morning by Ben Domenech over at the Transom. And what Domenech says, I'm looking at the email that he sent out this morning. He's saying that he said Donald Trump has made a mistake in that his running mate, J.D. Vance, he says contributed a bounce so small it may have been negative. He is his single cat lady comment is still dogging him. So that made Democrats and Taylor Swift then go left. And then Tim Walz being a choice by Kamala Harris over Pennsylvania's Josh Shapiro. Tim Walz is not doing anything for her. And what he writes at the transom is that he said the big news this week is the decision by the Teamsters, not endorsing either candidate. Their members solidly support Trump over Harris, 49.6 to 34%. And he said, it's been without question the most chaotic presidential election of the modern era, but it's not over yet. But the battle lines are hardened. They haven't really shifted. Americans might be on the edge, but they are remarkably consistent in their views, priorities, and attitudes toward both sides. And it's a thin strip of no man's land that will decide this election. And the people wandering in it right now are torn between two sides that don't seem interested in speaking to them. They're too busy trading shots online. It's what Ben Domenech is saying. And I think he's right about that, that you've got a thin strip of no man's land that is going to decide this election. And, Donald Trump speaking very much to the base and taking shots at Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, I don't know who the hell she is talking to other than the Uber left. I mean, wow. She is just like all over the road and crazy. But again, she's not winning anybody over. And Domenech is right. It's a really, really small percentage of people in a few states that are going to win this election. And the thing about Donald Trump's speech last night in New York was Trump is recognizing that, and he's from New York. He loves New York. He said as much. He told people in the audience, he said, not holding you responsible for New York State going after him, wanting to make their lives better again. And I would like to hear more of that, Donald Trump. And I think speaking in that way, speaking directly to those voters, and I shared that story this morning on the air about how the questions that are coming from voters versus the questions that are coming from the media, and just how stark it is. I mean, even some of the local media in New York asking far, far better questions than what you were seeing from NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, that kind of thing. The so-called legacy, national media. They were asking, Donald Trump was taking questions from, within the crowd, and it's all the things that you and I talk about on the show all of the time. So I think there's really got to be a focus on those issues. Kamala Harris shouldn't change a thing. I mean, just keep spewing her nonsense. It's just how anybody would support that, seriously, cannot be explained to me. It just makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Why anyone would support that? Because any support would have to be then purely emotional. Well, I'm voting, and there was a great example of this on Clay and Buck's program yesterday. If you happen to, there was a guy who called in who said that he was going to be supporting Kamala Harris, and he listens to Clay and Buck, once in a while, a different point of view. So they tried to pin him down. What are the reasons why you're supporting Kamala Harris? And what it boiled down to, it was all feelings. It was all feelings. There was nothing concrete. He couldn't point to a single concrete things that she was going to do that he would say, okay, she's going to reduce inflation by doing this, or this is going to make it easier to find a job, or this is going to, he couldn't point to a single thing. It was all about feelings. And so much of, I mean, seriously, I know elections, we've all got feelings, but you really have got to be able to set them aside. And at a time, I think, is when America, can we agree, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, independent, whatever you are, can we agree that America is in trouble? Can we look at what's going on in the border and the millions of people who have come in? Can we agree the country's in trouble? And I mean, and we could just go on and on. You know, those problems, I think so many of us see those problems. And Kamala Harris is nowhere near them. The things that she's talking about, you know, the right to, a right to an abortion, and very trying to push the pro-life, or excuse me, the pro-choice platform that Kamala Harris is pushing. And, it's all about fear. She's out there. She's trying to invoke fear in people. Oh, big bad man, big bad orange man's coming, and what he's going, and it's just absolute nonsense. And I think for folks that really kind of are concerned about their everyday quality of life, they're concerned about the government getting in their way in every damn thing involved in their lives. The government more and more has got a bigger role in all of these things. And haven't you noticed that the more the federal government does, the worse the country gets, and the worse all of these things become? It's just so striking. I don't know how you made, again. So for me, I'm one of the absolutely committed. I made up my mind. I know how I'm going to vote. There's just absolutely no question. I cannot for the life of me explain the thinking of the undecided voter who is not made up their mind. To me, this is such an open and shut case. I mean, in Kamala Harris, what people see in her that make them want to vote for her. I shared stories with you yesterday that Kamala Harris now is, when it comes to some issues, she's stealing language from Donald Trump. And even leftists who are saying, "Oh, we hope that Kamala is going to come back to, the positions that she has held before. We hope that she's just telling voters that in order to get them to vote for her." This is the left who's saying that. And yet they're still supporting her. Seriously, just telling voters what they want to hear in order to, in order to win their votes. That is just crazy. Who supports that? Apparently those on the left, because they're just distraught. They're hoping that she's just saying that. Yeah, we just hope she's saying that in order to win votes. And it's just absolutely mind-blowing. So what do these people stand for? It's just absolutely amazing that the choice is so clear to, I think, so many of us, and why we've got such a small number of people who are going to decide this election is, it just blows my mind. It's beyond me. And again, I've said many times, I understand why some don't like Donald Trump. He's a very outspoken guy. His personality rubs some people the wrong way. I absolutely understand that. He gets inflammatory at times with some of his language. I think it's a mistake, especially right now when you are running a race that is this close, just a sliver close. Why do you want to continue to take the chance by, throwing red meat to the base? The base is already on his side. So he really, if he wants to win, and I say this about Donald Trump winning, not because I'm a big Trump supporter. I'm concerned about the fate of the country. I am concerned about the fate of the country. That's why I'm concerned. That's why he needs to stop fooling around. He needs to get to business. If he wants to win the election, and for the sake of the country, he needs to. If he wants to win the election, stop fooling around. Again, I like Trump and I like his sense of humor. But when I think he can be out there and be the guy that is really, I think, affable, that a lot of people like. Granted, there are a good number of people who hate him too. But that really kind of affable person, that's who he is. But in terms of what he's talking about, boom, boom, he's got to hit those people. He's got to convince them. And this is where I thought he was on last night when he said to the people in Long Island, what in the hell have you got to lose? It's absolutely right. Well, I'm going to leave it there for today. I want to thank you for joining me. If you would, please hit the like button. Hit that like button. If you've got like-minded friends, let them know about what we're doing. And share the link to my page on Facebook. Invite them to, watch a sample of what we're doing and ask them to come on board. The more the merrier. I'm glad to have you. Very grateful for all of you. And I'm going to leave it there for today. Back again tomorrow. So long until then, my friend, and may God bless.